Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada and China. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful October 21st, 2019. Ground of the port, the Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, after getting through a stellar weekend of sports, we got the World Series finally set, which is going to be getting into Thanksgiving, I think, is sometime by the time it ends. We had a great weekend of college and pro football.
Yeah, it's all fair and love and war. You know, there's so much, people say sports and politics don't mix, but all the smart guys know that it does, because the City Council of Sacramento, California, I guess they're putting up $200 million for a soccer team, Big C. So a lot of good old boys going to be kicking the ball around. I guess downtown Sacramento, they have a couple of rivers that run through downtown. Maybe they'll kick the ball through the river. We know that baseball is starting with the World Series on Tuesday. NBA also starts on Tuesday. And football is like a year-round business. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, just tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Big C, you know, they say in California they have a drought problem because it doesn't rain that much in the desert, okay? They also say, I thank Gavin Newsom for signing a bill that no child will have to go hungry at school no matter how much money they don't have. We know that there's a homeless problem in California, one of the most expensive states in the union. But we got to put our priorities first. $200 million for a soccer team, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, $200 million in professional sports is really not a lot of money. You look at contracts that NBA players sign, baseball players sign, they exceed that as individuals.
Yeah.
You got to look at the economic impact that $200 million is going to bring in whatever area that they put that stadium up in, Charlton, as far as parking and concession revenue, goods sold around the facility. It's going to be a benefit to the community. If you look around the MLS and all the cities that have adopted these teams, Charlton, and I think the league has now expanded to 30 teams, all of them have been financial windfalls for those cities.
Yes, that's true. Now, I know we have in the Bay Area, the San Jose Earthquakes, they have a new stadium that was just put up a couple of years ago, and it's in the heart of Silicon Valley, and it rarely sells out. But, you know, it's a write-off for a lot of people with money also. Those two major teams down in Southern California, and they do pretty well. And I know soccer across the pond is very, very popular. But I like the fact that whenever you bring development in town, you make money for everybody involved. You're either making money or losing money in Congress. Big C, that make any sense to you?
Well, up until this year, had the 49ers sold out Levi Stadium for any games? No, and I mean, they can't even sell it out for the Pac-12 championship.
Yeah.
So if you look at the impact of soccer being an international game and you're in an international market there in California and you bring in the right players, you'll do very well economically.
No, I think that's a very good thing. And everybody knows it's just about opportunity. If you're not growing, you're shrinking. That's about the way we go throughout life. You're not growing, you're shrinking. So congratulations to them good old boys up in, I guess they call the River City. But there's only two rivers. I think if the two rivers qualify for River City, what does Minneapolis, St. Paul, the land of 10,000 lakes, qualify for, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you also got to look at Pittsburgh, where their stadium sits. It sits there right in front of three rivers where they come together. So it's always been known as the Three River City.
Yeah, that's always true. So we love sports. And again, congratulations. It just means more jobs, more concessions. And the city that I can feel bad for, maybe not, but Oakland, California, just about 80 miles apart, 90 miles apart. People are leaving there, where there's 7 million people in the greater Bay Area. Sacramento metropolitan only has 2.5 million, but oftentimes you got to go where you feel wanted. I do want to get your thoughts, because there's a lot of things going on in sports all over this great country. We have on Friday Night Lights, we're going to preview the number 1 versus number 2 high school football teams in the country out of Southern California. That's Mater Dei of Santa Ana and St. John Bosco of Bellflower. So really appreciate that. Big C Sports brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports podcast. And Big C Sports is also on Xfinity, Comcast Television, launching on Apple TV, Roku TV, Fire TV, Android, and smart TVs all over the universe. Big C, I know we give out this National Suicide Hotline number, 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or they can text 838-255. That's 838-255, not just for military veterans, but for everybody who needs help. One more thing I want to throw in a caveat. We juxtapose the homeless problem in California and in the state capital, Sacramento. They're proposing like camps for homeless camps. At the same time, they're saying they don't have the money for it, but it's the private money that came up with $200 million, not the state. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, anything that you can do to help the plight of the homelessness in America is greatly deserved, Charlton. There is so much capital out there in the United States where you can go out and fund these type of facilities. When you think about the underused facilities in California as well as any other state, abandoned warehouses and other industrial parks, Charlton, that can be converted into homeless shelters for those people that are sleeping on the street. I mean, what a better use of the private sector. Yeah. And a lot of those people, Charlton, are in the plight where they can utilize the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number. Yep. They're out there, they're downtrodden, they haven't had anybody look at them from a positive perspective or even lend a hand, Charlton. So by California doing that, thinking about helping out and building facilities for the homeless people, what a better thing to do. Because so many people that have gotten into those situations, Charlton, have contemplated or committed suicide. Yeah. And that's an horrific way to go down that path in life, Charlton, to not have anybody to talk to lean on. So the National Suicide...
I think we have a little bit of problem with your phone, Big C, but we'll get you right back on in just a minute. And here we go. Now, I know that we had a little bit of problems with the phone call, Big C, but we're going to get you right back up in just a moment. And I do appreciate what you're saying, because the fact that everybody knows you have to have the chance in California or any place in this great country. And we got you back on the line, Big C. I know they were saying about building camps in California. I was thinking since the G20 is going to be canceled at Mar-a-Lago down in Florida, maybe POTUS can put that up to help some people that are going through some issues. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he says it's a great property down in Florida, Charlton, and revenue has been down between 2013 and 2017, 69%. So maybe he could, since he's not turning a profit, he wants to do things for free. Yeah. Maybe he can think about helping out some of the homeless people down in Florida.
Well, he said make the country, make America great again. I think it'd be great if he gave out some acts of charity and kindness. So I want to get on to the world of sports, Big C. The sporting event is so wonderful, it requires two names. When you think about what's coming up with them good old boys down in Texas, now they're welcoming in the Washington Nationals. But I just want to get your thoughts. It takes two names, the Fall Classic and the World Series. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, as you think about that, Charlton, it's what it is. It is a classic every year. It's an epic potential 7-game series that we look forward to, and it's been since the beginning of sports. The World Series is the longest-running championship out there in professional sports, Charlton. And what's ironic is that you get the two hottest teams in baseball that's always competing for it. Yeah. You got the Houston Astros going to be hosting Game 1 down in the Minute Maid Stadium down in Houston, Texas, with the Washington Nationals coming to town. A team that's been on a hot streak, Charlton, that they've walked through everybody throughout the playoffs, and now they've ended up in the World Series.
Yeah, they really have. And I want to take you back to a moment that I thought is epic for me, because they say the size matter in so many things. People want the big cars. They want the big home. Everybody wants the big bank account. We want big favor with the universe. But I want to ask you a question, because we saw Aroldis Chapman for the Yankees, the guy that throws 100 miles per hour with his eyes closed as a closer. And then we see Altuve coming up, who might be tall enough to reach his belly button, Big C. But there was a time, it was 0-2, and actually it was 2-0, 2 balls and no strikes. And people might be thinking, why is Chapman afraid to challenge Altuve? And he threw that ball where Altuve could get to it, and people saw why it was a home run that ended the game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I know most of the season you were saying Chapman's praise about he's the guy that you want in there at the closing of a ball game because he throws the ball 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Well, as he turned his head around, that ball was exiting the ballpark at about 125 miles an hour.
Yeah.
With Altuve knocking it out and turning out the lights on the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
This was a fitting ending, Charlton. When you think about the Houston Astros being the best team in baseball at the end of the season with the most wins of all Major League ball clubs, it was right that they go to the World Series. And they knocked out the team that was second in Major Leagues in home runs this last season, Charlton, the New York Yankees, and it was befitting that the series ended on a home run by the Houston Astros.
Isn't it amazing? Because in baseball, it's even more so in football, people challenge the guys that don't stand, over 6 feet. And Chapman's about 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", depending on, how they mark guys up in size. But he's a big man. And then Altuve probably around 5'8", maybe 5'6", how they add on size. But when you look at football also, you look at Kyler Murray, he's like Pat Hayden also, Fran Tarkenton. He's about 5'10", so you mean he's probably about 5'8", Big C. And these two players are starting to be the reason that their teams are making headlines. I want to get your feeling. I know you talked about Houston. They earned their right into the World Series, and they've been the best record in baseball. It's not a joke. And then you have the Yankees can hit home runs with anybody. But would you say that, would it be pitching in your opinion? Because Verlander really wasn't the reason they got in this time. Your thoughts?
Well, it's all about the bats and timing hitting when it gets to the playoffs. You can have the greatest pitchers in baseball.
Yeah.
But unless you're scoring runs, it's irrelevant. But the Houston Astros, throughout this series, were able to produce the runs when the runs counted.
Yeah.
They had timely hitting. Yes, they gave up game one at home against the Yankees, but it could have been a little fatigue at that point also, or just too much time off. Who knows?
Yeah.
But when the games got underway in earnest after game two, Charlton, it was all over. It was a dominant performance on the mound and in the field and at the plate for the Houston Astros. Everybody did their part. That's what championship pedigree is. You can say you got the greatest pitchers in the game.
Right.
But unless you got guys who can put the ball in play, it doesn't make any difference. You can lose 1-0 with the greatest pitcher, and he can basically throw all but a shutout, Charlton, and give up that one run and lose.
Yeah, so congratulations, the Houston Astros. Second time in 2 seasons they're playing in the Fall Classic or the World Series, whatever you want to call it. Washington Nationals, Big C. They had some high drama of their own, as you mentioned, with late rallies in the wild card game against the Brewers, and also a Game 5 of the division series against the Dodgers. And then I still think about what they did to the Atlanta Braves, because I thought Atlanta would have played the Dodgers in that championship series, Big C. But you got to give them congratulations. What chance do you think a team that can sweep the Cardinals in 4 games, which has just as good a pitching as anybody, what chance would you give them against those mighty Houston Astros, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I call this series equal going in, Charlton.
Really?
When I think about the stance that both of these teams are in right now, they did what they had to do to get to the World Series. So how do you pick a favorite in the World Series? We've seen that home field advantage has not mattered to either one of these teams, Charlton. They've gone into each other's ballpark, into their opponents' ballparks, and won games. So it's about who's hot at the plate. We know that both teams have dominant pitching rotations. Each one of them had bona fide 3 starters on their rotation who will see the bulk of the work throughout this series.
Yeah.
So I don't look at the Nationals being an underdog. This is the team that's playing with house money. They were the wild card team that got in, Charlton, and they've been playing wild baseball ever since.
Yeah, I really look forward to seeing the nation's capital. But the big question I have for you, POTUS is getting mad at everybody in the White House. Even Republicans are starting to read. A lot of them had to head to San for so long. Now they're starting to disagree with the man that could also jeopardize their futures, Big C. Will POTUS be seen throwing out the first pitch when the Nationals are at home? Your thoughts?
Well, the thing about your friend, the president, Charlton, I don't think he wants to be seen in public. That's something that if he goes out in Washington, D.C. and goes to a sporting event and gets booed, that's going to kill his ego.
Well, he would say it's fake news anyway, Big C. He would say don't trust your ears, trust what I tell you. But it's all fair and loving word. I want to kick it off, as a lot of good old boys are starting to do on Friday in college football. And I want to get into what's next for Big C's top 10 in college football, the Blue Bloods, Big C. And there's a lot of upset people down in the South, maybe. You have Alabama, ranked number 1 in many people's polls. You have Tua, and he has an ankle surgery. I guess he had ankle surgery on Sunday after a home win against Tennessee. That was a really kind of tough game for them. And there's no timetable on his return. But them good old boys from LSU coming to town in 3 weeks, they hope he stays out for a little bit longer. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the thing about Alabama, when you look at this scenario, last year when Tua was injured, they had Jalen Hurts to back up.
Yep.
They had that veteran quarterback that could come off the bench, and the team didn't miss a stride. Now they have a redshirt sophomore, Charlton, who's going to be at the helm, who struggled a little bit against a struggling Tennessee.
Yeah.
The thing about Alabama, this is a team that could potentially lose to LSU in 3 weeks and not make the SEC playoffs and still make the Final Four playoffs in college football.
Yeah, they'll probably, because of the resume, they can afford a loss, but it just got a little bit thicker. That soup got a little bit thicker, and that's why Alabama recruits so much, and people wonder why. Well, you just said it, because sometimes you miss one player, and it can put your season in jeopardy. But I want to take you to Big C's thoughts on Big C's number 2 team, LSU. After a slow start against Mississippi State, the Tigers got on the roll behind Joe Burrow. Their next 2 opponents, Big C, Auburn and Alabama. Your thoughts?
Well, they have to run through the state of Alabama, Charlton, to continue their flight for an SEC title. When you think about Joe Burrow as a quarterback, it seems every week we look at Joe Burrow. He's dropping 4 touchdown passes, Charlton, on his opponents. And Mississippi State was no exception. They got off to a sluggish start, but Joe Burrow found his stride. 4 touchdowns later, a big blowout win over Mississippi State in Stockboro.
Does it give you any more belief? I mean, I think you already have it figured out, but do you think if you look at the SEC, you have Georgia has lost the game? And people are saying, well, Georgia can still get in, but I think the bowl committees would rather choose let's assume Alabama loses to LSU. If they don't have 2, they're not going to beat LSU. Would the bowl committee consider a 1-loss Georgia over a 1-loss Alabama? I don't think so, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, it all depends on who gets into the SEC championship. When you think about Georgia and Florida, they're going to handle each other. They're going to play in a week or 2.
Yeah.
And they both have 1 loss. The winner of that game will end up in the SEC championship game because they'll be out of the SEC East.
Yeah.
So that will be the representation there. That winner of that game, Charlton, is going to potentially have to face, if LSU stays undefeated, LSU. And we've seen the juggernaut that LSU has been. And you go in, you lose the SEC championship game, you're not going to make it to the college football playoffs. Then that 1-loss team out of the West, which would be Alabama potentially, would automatically get in.
Well, let me take you up north because they say a Buckeye is a nut. And the Ohio State Buckeyes, not that anyone roots for anyone's injury, I mean, not publicly anyway, but the Ohio State Buckeyes, Big C's number 3 team, they made sure that no mini trend of road losses ended there, like it happened the last 2 seasons, Purdue and also Iowa, I believe. That is not going to keep them out of the playoffs this year. They thrashed Nebraska and Northwestern by a combined score of 100-10. And you look at Ryan Day's team, it surges into this week's showdown against Wisconsin, which is going to be a wounded Badger, but they got had by Illinois. If you get had by Illinois, they're probably going to lose by double digits to Ohio State. Does that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, as you spoke about, over the last couple of years, they've lost these teams, Charlton, that shouldn't have been losses on their resume, which cost them potentially getting into the college football playoff. They handled those 2 games, Charlton, on the schedule, as well as they trounced Northwestern on Friday night. It wasn't even a contest. They won 52 points on Northwestern also. So when you think about it, in their last 3 games, 152 points to basically 17 that they've beat their opponents. They have a wounded Badger coming in, a Badger that was upset by the Fighting Illini. And I know you said they shouldn't be called fighting anymore, but they whipped us on some Badgers up there in Champaign, so they droused them a little bit. It's going to be an interesting game. We know that Wisconsin can throw the ball. They have a tremendous defense. This is going to be Ohio State's toughest opponent of the year. And if they get to this game, Charlton, it could be a cakewalk the rest of the way. Maybe Minnesota and Penn State won't be as tough.
Yeah, so I want to just say Tubby Smith, the Illinois Fighting Illini, they really fought that game. But you know, them good old boys were looking ahead. That's the only thing that makes any sense. They may never tell you that, but they were looking ahead, and they took the eye off the prize. Big C's number 4 team, Clemson. Them Tigers, the shaky start to the game is not the way Dabo Swinney would draw it up, Big C. You think about Trevor Lawrence. He continues to make the questionable calls and decisions that he did not make a year ago as a freshman. And Clemson raced past Louisville on the road, but they have a running back the name of Etienne. They need to run him more often, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Etienne had an outstanding game, just under 200 yards on the ground. He actually rushed for about 40 yards less than what Trevor Lawrence threw for in that game. Right. And Trevor Lawrence already has doubled his interception total from his freshman campaign and his sophomore campaign. Tough decisions that he has made throughout the year, Charlton. He has not been the sparkling quarterback and has not lived up to the resume that the media gave him prior to the season.
Well, as you always say, when defensive coordinators get a read on you, they don't care about the paper and the press. They care about, we found his tendencies, and we're going to stop him based on his tendencies. Big C's number 5 team, the Oklahoma Sooners. You know, that Sooner schooner may have crashed, Big C, and I hope the people are okay. It turned over on the grass. But they did not slow down Jalen Hurts and company. They put up 52 points on West Virginia, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about where this Oklahoma offense is right now, Charlton, how do you defense a team that can run and throw the ball equally well? You know, as all the critics about Jalen Hurts and everybody said, you know, that he would not fit in the Lincoln Riley system. Right. All the media proponents out there now are eating this thing called crow, I believe what it is, or some kind of bird.
And I know you know how it tastes.
And they got to swallow it with the feathers and all. But Jalen Hurts has been phenomenal. But even more phenomenal has been the defense of Oklahoma. When you think about when they played West Virginia last year and they had Will Greer in that game, Charlton, Oklahoma gave up 48 points in that game. Yeah. They held West Virginia to just 17 in this last Saturday's outing.
Yeah, it was amazing. They're a good team, and I mean, it's a shame that we don't have a 6 or 8 team playoff bracket. We only have 4, but it's okay. It's for now. I think it's going to change soon. Big C's number 16, Penn State Nittany Lions, during the season of video game quarterback stats. You think about Penn State's Sean Clifford. It wasn't gaudy, but he isn't greedy either. 7-0 on the season. They had the big whiteout. And when POTUS heard it was a whiteout, he wanted Air Force One to go. They told him, no, that just means in jerseys, not in people, Big C, so he stayed in Washington, D.C. But now the Nittany Lions, they got to figure out how to put together 2 halves instead of 1 great half. As Penn State squeaked by Michigan had a touchdown in the end zone. The good old boy let it slip through his hands. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, they got up 21-0 at halftime on Michigan and sort of went into an offensive low at that point. You know, they did not execute. Michigan got back into this game, Charlton. They happened to score a late touchdown to get that 7-point separation. Yep. But they got to find out, as you say, how to play 4 quarters. They have a tremendous defense. That defense was taken advantage of by Michigan in the second half. I know Jim Harbaugh said coming into this game that Michigan's offense had found its stride. Yeah. They need to also learn how to play 2 halves of football.
Yeah, they got to find it in the first half, not just in the second, Big C. But it's all fair and love and war. I want to take you to Big C's number 7 team. The Florida Gators showed resilience. It was in the rain against South Carolina. They could send some of that rain to California, by the way. And it was most especially quarterback Kyle Trask, who put on a poor start behind him, and he led a comeback with a monster fourth quarter. And the next schedule is number 10, Georgia, and the world's largest outdoor cocktail. And I want to say what they call a porta potty party also. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, there's going to be a lot of hydration going on when those 2 teams finally meet. But when you think about Kyle Trask down at Florida to come back from that game that they had played down in Death Valley at LSU a week before, where that defense handed him an education in playing football, Charlton, how he was able to rebound against this starch South Carolina defense, who just before had given Georgia their first defeat of the season, when everybody thought that Georgia might be in the national championship hunt. Yeah. But this South Carolina team was no pushover, but Trask was able to rise to the occasion.
Yeah, he was able to do that definitely in the second half. Big C's number 7 pick. The Florida Gators showed resilience in the rain against them. But I just want to get back to that thought, because if you have the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, do you think they have the porta potty? I mean, whoever has a porta potty, you don't want to drink water downstream. I hope they have enough to cover the party. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, in the South, Charlton, you don't always have time to make it to the porta potty, so there's things like buildings and vehicles.
Yeah, I do understand that. I love the cocktail party is amazing, but they got to have a place to relieve yourself. Big C's number 8, Notre Dame. Notre Dame had a perfect weekend, for you think about it, coming off a win against the mighty USC Trojans. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they had an easy one this past week, Charlton, by having a bye. Yep. They didn't have to worry about things. Now they can get healthy and look forward to that next opponent.
Yeah, and I'm sure they had a lot of come-to-Jesus moments, too. They're praying that they can get into the final somehow in the Final Four. Big C's number 9, the Auburn Tigers. They took advantage of a struggling Arkansas team that's now lost 4 straight, but it won't be so easy this Saturday night, Big C. Auburn will face LSU in Death Valley. And this is the same Auburn team that was rolling until they got knocked off down in the swamp. Now they're going to an even more difficult place to win. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Auburn was beat via the pass when they played Florida. Now you're going to one of the hottest quarterbacks in the country in Joe Burrow, who's now leading the nation in touchdown passes. This Auburn defensive line is outstanding, but this secondary is really going to be challenged with these high-flying LSU receivers.
Yeah.
Auburn's really going to have to buckle up. Not only do they have LSU on the schedule, Charlton, but they still have the Iron Bowl versus Alabama.
That's very true, Big C. I want to get Big C's top 10, the Georgia Bulldogs. Let's say the Bulldogs' performance against Kentucky didn't do too much to tramp down some concerns about their offense, especially with the SEC East Division showdown against Florida coming up, and that's going to be November 2nd. They got to get back in that groove that they lost a little bit, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about this Georgia team, Charlton, they struggled in the rain at home against Kentucky. Kentucky has been down this year from where they were last year with 10 wins, so you don't put a lot of credence in that victory. But when I think about Georgia, and you look at the 3 quarterbacks that are playing college football this year that Kirby Smart recruited down in Georgia over the last 3 seasons. He has Jacob Fromm pulling the trigger at Georgia, but Jacob Eason up at Washington and Justin Fields at the Ohio State University. Both of them have outperformed Jacob Fromm down at Georgia. So did Kirby Smart make the right move in keeping that quarterback?
That's a very good question. I just want to add in a caveat for the West Coast Pac-12 football. It was the University of Oregon with the come-from-behind win up at Husky Stadium, Puget Sound, over the Washington Huskies. That was a dynamic game, and it keeps Oregon's hopes alive of at least an outdoor berth. But most likely looking at the Rose Bowl, I don't think enough teams are going to lose ahead of them. But it was a great showing for Pac-12 football. I want to say before we come up on what's called the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Timeout, we're going to come back and talk a lot about football because there's a lot of things happening in the NFL. And I'm impressed by the way things are going in the NFL. But I think Roger Goodell could learn some things from baseball. We'll take the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Timeout. Take it with us. We'll be right back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause, and I really love the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. I really love the fact that you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, also Amazon TV, Fire TV, as well as other smart TVs all over the universe. Big C, I know if you saw, there was so much rain, especially in Washington, D.C., and to see the 49ers going there and win, we'll talk about that. That's impressive to go. They won 9-0, but they're undefeated, and their defense is going to just show more people that fistful of goal that they're looking for. But the NFL conversation is actually time, in my opinion, that Commissioner Roger Goodell, sit down with NBA Commissioner and also Baseball Commissioner Bob Manfred and learn how to do things and work things out. I think what's happening with Adam, Silver in the NBA, he's learned to talk a lot about how to work things out with players. Also, look at what Manfred's doing with Major League Baseball. I think Roger Goodell could learn from them, but I want to get your opinion, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, I think Roger Goodell could learn from Rob Manfred, the MLB commissioner, Major League Baseball. When we look at this season, this has been one of the most tumultuous seasons in the NFL that I've ever seen. We have this replay rule that's in that nobody is getting right. We're up at a record number of penalties in football games right now, Charlton. We're also at a record number of missed calls. I look at how Major League Baseball has implemented their instant replay, and it's only 3 to 4 years old.
Yeah.
But they've gotten it right. it doesn't take 2 minutes to figure out that you've blown a call or made a call.
Right.
We see in every game throughout the playoffs, somebody gotten a challenge in. And the umpires will go to the side, Charlton, and within 30 seconds, they've got the call made, sometimes 15 to 20 seconds. It is very expeditious of how Major League Baseball has done things. Major League Baseball has always been in the forefront of league professionality as far as players' union, Charlton, pensions for the players, health insurance for the players. Major League Baseball has always gotten it right. Arbitration, all of these things. The NFL is still light years behind Major League Baseball. It might be ahead of Major League Baseball in popularity. But as far as how it treats the players and how the officiating is done, Charlton, Major League Baseball is light years ahead. So I think that's something that Roger Goodell needs to sit down with Rob Manfred from and learn how to officiate the game properly, how to utilize instant replay so we don't have all of these egregious calls and length of time between blowing a call, Charlton, with the officials.
Well, he could also follow Big C Sports. We're about 3,000 miles apart, Big C. You're down south. I'm here on the West Coast. And when our phone lines went down, because I think some people from Russia have been bugging us, Big C, it took about, 10 seconds to get you back on the line, and that's 3,000 miles away. We didn't have to call New York. How'd I get you back on the line without calling New York, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, this is something, when the NFL does something wrong, they don't want to admit to it. It's been reticent in everybody's eyes that the NFL has a problem with how the officiating has gone this year. It's like you throw out a flag and say, well, there's no flag now, even though we all watched what occurred. You're seeing penalties that exist, and you don't throw the flag. So I think that Goodell and the league needs to sit down when they have their owners and committee meetings on refereeing, Charlton. They need to bring Rob Manfred in and let him be the director.
Well, remember this, though. When I told you about Google Prop Bet only makes sense when people don't know what's going to happen. So that's my opinion. Big C, why does the NFL look at moving on? Think about why don't they look at moving on when somebody's playing a bad game? They always want to, fire a coach because the players can't win games. They ever consider moving on from the $100 million quarterbacks, Big C? Your thoughts?
That needs to be the trend in the NFL now. I know last week we were talking about coaches that were on the hot seat. And as I reevaluate that, Charlton, why should coaches be on the hot seat?
They should
when
not.
You have a quarterback that stays with an organization and that organization doesn't get any better, even though that coach moves on, somebody made a bad decision, not with the coach, Charlton. They made this bad decision with these quarterbacks that they're alleging that are franchise quarterbacks, and you have to have them. What NFL teams have done as of late, Charlton, they've gotten these young quarterbacks. They've gotten them at a very inexpensive price. These young quarterbacks are going out there performing. They don't have those $100 million contracts. What that affords a team to do, Charlton, is go out and build around that quarterback. To bring in the personnel that will facilitate around him. The receivers, the linemen, the running backs, Charlton, even defensive players that will help that team overall get better. We've seen that model run in New England forever. Tom Brady taking less so that you can get capable players around him, both offensively and defensively, that are NFL caliber ball players, Charlton, not just NFL caliber roster players.
Well, back in the day, the great Spike Lee wrote a movie. He made a movie called She Gotta Have It. I don't know what she had to have, but she got whatever she had to have. And I think a lot of these teams, they gotta have someone to blame. And they don't want to blame the people that they told you is going to help them win the Super Bowl. So they fire the coach who, for last I checked, they don't really play on the field, but they do things on the sideline. And speaking of that, at 1-6, and an injury aside, is it time for the Falcons to move on from overpriced Matt Ryan instead of Dan Quinn? Dan Quinn, same coach that coached them to the Super Bowl. Matt Ryan's the same quarterback that didn't know he had Julio Jones on his team when they lost to New England. They were up 28-3 at halftime. It wasn't Dan Quinn that was saying keep passing the ball when we got a 25-point lead. That was a guy that wanted to be the MVP, and that got him $155 million. But no one ever talks about moving on for him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when I looked at the game over the weekend, and the Falcons looked very abysmal. If they didn't have that, this is a team that's really 2 drop passes away from being 0-7 against the Philadelphia Eagles in that opening night of the season. Second night of the season when the Eagles had lost all their receivers. They had 2 drop touchdown receptions against the Falcons. Otherwise, the Falcons would be 0-7. Everyone wants to blame the head coach, saying he's not getting the most out of players. You got a quarterback this last week that was only able to produce one offensive touchdown for a $155 million contract.
Yeah.
He was throwing incompletions and interceptions in the game, getting sacked in the game. This is the guy that you're paying $155 million to that's saying he's your leader and a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
The thing about it, the media is very hesitant on attacking these white multi-million-dollar quarterbacks.
Yeah.
They have no problem with Cam Newton.
Yeah.
But these white $100 million quarterbacks, the media is saying, well, it's the coach.
Yeah, it's always, that's a very good point. And all you have to do is Google it, too. It's amazing he gets hurt. And they're at with their record 1 win on the season, kind of inconspicuous time to get hurt, but it happens to everybody. I want to look at 0-6, Big C. We talk about quarterbacks. Andy Dalton, this guy for the Cincinnati Bengals, he's taken them as far as they can go. I think everyone can finally see the problem really was not Marvin Lewis. That's just my opinion. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, the media for years kept saying, well, Marvin Lewis must go. Marvin Lewis must go. I heard that for 5 years. Marvin Lewis must go. I haven't heard anybody in the media saying Andy Dalton must go. Andy Dalton must go. He's 0-6. This is a very lackluster offense right now. He's very predictable about what he's going to do at quarterback. Everyone thought, oh, we're going to go out and hire this Zach Taylor, who's the offensive coordinator with the Rams. Oh, by the way, he didn't bring the Rams personnel along with him that made it very easy for him to be the successful offensive coordinator with the Rams. Now that he's in Cincinnati, he is worse off than what Marvin Lewis was as far as productivity. He has the same host of players that Marvin Lewis has, and he can't get the productivity out of them. But Andy Dalton has hung on for the past several years in Cincinnati. He got the big contract a year ago, and he hasn't had any big-time production. Marvin Lewis got fired. It's time for Andy Dalton to move on.
At least sit him on the bench, Big C, in Detroit. Everyone keeps talking about how great and talented Matthew Stafford is. But people can Google this. He makes over $100 million, his contract. He's 2 wins, 3 losses, and 1 tie. Big C, what's good about that?
Well, everybody keeps talking about the talent of Matthew Stafford. You think about Matthew Stafford. He's never won a playoff game in the NFL. But yet, he is the quickest quarterback to 40,000 yards in his career. 40,000 yards of non-productivity. That's what Matthew Stafford has produced. 40,000 yards of losing seasons. And so at some point, you have to sit back and say, okay, we're giving this guy all this money. He's throwing for all these yards. They do not equate to wins. Why do we keep him?
Remember that lady? There was I know you guys eat a lot of meat down south, Big C, but I think about it. There was a lady, an old Caucasian lady. She made a commercial back in the day, and she would say something they probably never say at your restaurants, which is, "Where's the beef?" Like, where is the beef? There's no beef made about guys that you give $100+ million to, and they don't even win. It's like you're paying guys to lose, and no one even finds a problem with it. And then we have some African-American quarterbacks that have come on the scene, and they're winning. And people keep wondering, well, we really don't know if he's going to keep doing it. But they know the guys that got the $100 million are not going to win. But there's no pushback, Big C. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and that's what perplexes me about this great game, Charlton, is that the guys that are productive, and they're going out there week in, week out. But the media has built this mantra that you got to have this certain organic look at quarterback. He has to be white, he has to be tall, and he has to have that big arm. Big arms mean nothing. I mean, when I think about the lack of productivity, when you don't have a winning career record in the NFL, when you're a sub-500 quarterback, yet you're called a franchise quarterback, what does that mean? That you have a franchise that you don't want to win? That perplexes me.
It's about just, like, where's the beef? They got to find out the beef is how many times do you win. Another guy that I like, Phillip Rivers, in his 17th year at quarterback, no Super Bowls. You think about Big Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning, they have 2. The Chargers are now 3-4 in the season, and it's his career as a starter finally over. I know Gordon fumbled on the goal line down in Tennessee, but that happens. But still, there's no wins for Rivers, Big C, and he sometimes looks a little bit defeated walking around. He doesn't have that leadership, I guess, stature that he used to have, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the cry is coming about Anthony Lynn. Has his mantra and mojo run out in San Diego. I mean, in Los Angeles.
He didn't
with
fumble
the
the ball
Chargers.
the goal
You have
line.
to ask that about Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
Phillip Rivers really went off the deep end this year. You talk about a massive decline as a quarterback. I've seen a lot of questionable throws that he has made, even one that was a lateral that was returned for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And you can't blame that on Anthony Lynn. He looks a little skittish in the pocket as he's gotten older. I think he was buying time trying to get into this new stadium, Charlton.
Yeah.
But it's time for the Chargers to look at their future. He's going to be a free agent at the end of this year. Do they make a trade here during the season? Because the trade deadline is only 8 days away in the NFL.
Yeah.
Or do you looking at the draft to see what's available?
Well, they got to do something, but that check engine light has been coming on for Phillip Rivers for at least this season. I also want to go to the Windy City. The Windy City is not windy. It's not called Windy City because it's cold and windy. It's because they have those dirty politics in Chicago, Big C, from back in the day. But you think about it. Chicago, Mitch Trubisky is truly a stretch with the number 2 overall pick. I mean, he had a decent season last year because their defense was so good. The second quarterback drafted behind him, there was 2 of them. Patrick Mahomes, as you call it, Patrick Mahomes, and Deshaun Watson. And the Bears have struggled on offense all season. They scored less than 50 points, Big C. Your thoughts?
They struggled on offense, which has really made it hard on their defense to be a top-flight defense because they spend so much time on the field. They got rid of their best running back in Jordan Howard because they thought they were going to be able to run a spread offense with Mitch Trubisky, a la what they do in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Mitch Trubisky cannot grasp the spread offense in the NFL. He is not quick enough. He is not salient enough mentally to do that. And you see the struggles that the Bears have, scoring less than 50 points this season, Charlton, through 6 games. They are not the same team that they were last year. This defense has gotten tired and beat up. But Mitch Trubisky, it was a stretch when he was drafted. He had only had 13 starts in college football.
Yeah.
But because he was white and he was a big prototypical type quarterback that had been the history of the NFL, the Chicago Bears passed on Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. 2 players with an outstanding resume in college and have gone on. Patrick Mahomes has been an MVP already in his second year. Deshaun Watson will be an MVP within his first 4 years in the NFL. Mitch Trubisky could be replaced soon.
So let me get your thoughts then. What did the Bears see in Trubisky that they did not see in Mahomes? And also Watson, who were very dominant quarterbacks in college, and they had teams that actually were competing for conference and national championships. Pixie, your thoughts?
Well, they saw what your buddies Todd McShay and Mel Kiper saw, Dalton. A guy who had only played 13 games, and they said, well, he had a high ceiling on it. They thought that Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson had plateaued out because each one of these guys had spent 3 and 4 years playing college football, and they thought that they weren't going to get any better. Not understanding that you need that maturity in college to be able to play at the NFL level. You have to get repetitions. And if you don't have the repetitions on the college level, Charlton, how are you going to get the repetitions on the pro level? And Mitch Trubisky being limited physically, he ran the ball more last year. And now he can't run because he got an injured shoulder. And you'll hear a lot of the media say, well, he was playing with a shoulder harness. That was on his left shoulder. He's a right-handed quarterback.
Peyton Manning had an injured neck. They put a cast on his foot. I'll never forget that, Big C. Now, let me throw you another bone. Sometimes they pass what's called the paperback test. You can Google it sometime anywhere out in the sports universe. In Carolina, has the Cam Newton era officially ended? Would he feel more comfortable if he's walking down what they call the boardwalk? What do they do when the catwalk when the models want to show you how good they look? Big C, your thoughts?
I think Cam Newton's time has come to an end. When you think about when Carolina drafted Cam Newton, they had a different ownership when they drafted him. Ron Rivera is fighting for his job right now. With this new ownership, they're demanding that Ron Rivera wins. When you look at the offense in Carolina, it's set up for what they have now with Kyle Allen and Christian McCaffrey. When Cam Newton was drafted, they built that offense around Cam Newton's mobility. The players that they have now don't fit into that scheme of Cam's mobility. And so I know that Cam is going to move on. If not during the season, the trade deadline, he will be gone at the end of the season. And when I think about opportunities for Cams, we just talked about Phillip Rivers in San Diego. The Chargers are moving into a new stadium. What not a better fit for Cam Newton to be in Los Angeles since he wants to be in the fashion mogul business, Charlton?
That's true.
It would be a perfect fit for Cam and Anthony Lynn with the Los Angeles Chargers in that new stadium out there in
L.A., Inglewood.
Where they're building it in Los Angeles.
Out in Inglewood. Same thing, L.A. It's all, that makes so much sense. It is the number 2 fashion capital in the United States. So let me ask you this question then. What will the Tennessee Titans do? They've already benched Marcus Mariota for Ryan Tannehill, and last I checked, Tannehill has more losses than career wins. Where's the beef, Big C? Your thoughts?
You know, this is a team that's in total disarray. I look at Marcus Mariota. This is a guy who has lost his confidence to play quarterback in the NFL. You talk about somebody shell-shocked, that's Marcus Mariota. When you look at him, he's never looked comfortable all year long playing football. He's missed wide-open receivers, Charlton, and Tennessee really had no choice but to bench him. When you're not putting any touchdowns on the scoreboard as a quarterback via the air, you have to find alternatives. They replaced him with Ryan Tannehill. They fortunately got a win against the Chargers on the weekend, although the officials blew 2 calls in the game that cost San Diego touchdowns. They blew 2 touchdown calls, and this is what I was talking about earlier with Roger Goodell sitting down with Robert Manfred on how not to screw up these replay calls.
Yeah.
But the Tennessee Titans, they're in the market for a quarterback. They have an outstanding defense, but just like the Bears, regardless of how well your defense is, if they get too many plays on the field, they become mediocre.
Well, in order for prop betting to make a lot of money for the casinos, you got to have some shenanigans, Big C. They don't want everything to be perfect. Let me take you up to the Mile High in Denver. Joe Flacco seemed to be stupefied at times. John Elway doesn't have a clue, it seems. And no one questions John Elway. But just Google what's happening lately. Who's the next quarterback to go through that revolving door? Since Elway's taken over, I think they had 5 or 6 revolving quarterbacks, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, since Elway has taken over with this organization, Charlton, they've had 12 quarterbacks on the roster.
Wow.
12 different quarterbacks since John Elway had been the GM in Denver. That means that he has a problem picking quarterbacks. He got lucky with Peyton Manning, got to a couple Super Bowls with him, but we saw it the last year that Peyton was playing. He was walking around with a boot on his foot when he had a neck problem. So, what's going to be the next move in Denver? Joe Flacco, when I looked at him, you have to have some motivation at quarterback. You have to have some enthusiasm to make the rest of the team rally around you. In that last game that they played, when I saw a quarterback look scared, I saw Eli Manning in Joe Flacco's face, Charlton.
Really?
The Denver Broncos are in trouble. We talked about quarterbacks moving on. Marcus Mariota could be a good fit out in Denver. You never know. Change of scenery in the NFL works wonders for a lot of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Because now you get out of all of that hype from where you were drafted. We know Jameis Winston may be on the move also down in Tampa.
Yep. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sometimes you just need a change, and when you have a change, you can see things that you didn't see before. People get stuck in rote mode, Big C. The New York Giants, speaking of where's the beef, the New York Giants had a 2-week honeymoon. Bliss. You think about it with Daniel Jones. They were saying they love this guy and they wanted to take him home and have him marry the grandchildren or whoever. They wanted to marry somebody. But that marriage might be over now. He's gotten cold hands. He seems to have gone back to what he's comfortable doing, which is panicking. He wasn't ready, but they had to do something because they didn't want to make Eli look any worse than he was looking, Big C. But we did say, and people can Google it, that yes, Eli was benched, but Eli will be back before the end of the season, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the move for Tannehill was a motivational move for the team. You brought in a quarterback who did something that Eli Manning could not do, and that was have mobility with the football, to be able to utilize his legs. That time had passed for Eli Manning. He was never a great scrambler.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones, when you look at his effectiveness in the first 2 games that he played, was more through his mobility than it was through his arm. Even though he had a 300-yard passing game, Charlton, he kept the defense at bay because of his mobility.
Yep.
But all of a sudden, after 2 games, I think that one little thing that everybody in the NFL gets is called game tape.
Yeah.
Okay? These are the limitations that this quarterback has.
Yeah.
He can't throw the ball down the field. He gets a little antsy in the pocket, and he's turnover prone. If you look at what Daniel Jones has done in all the games that he's played, Charlton, he has thrown at least 1 interception in every game that he's played, and he's fumbled the ball in every game that he's played. So that's something that's now really hindered the Giants' offense, is that his inability to hold on to the football and his inaccuracy down the field. Anything over 30 yards, Charlton, is a struggle for Daniel Jones. Everything under 5 and 6, the same thing that Eli Manning can complete, that's where the Giants' offense is. Did they make the right move with him at quarterback? No, they did not. It was a quick honeymoon. It was almost like a shotgun wedding, that you were forced into something because you thought somebody was pregnant. Then you found out you wasn't pregnant, and you got an annulment.
Well, be careful when you date girls from the South. I remember I dated a girl from the South one time. I used to say, why you ever do your hair, make your hair look nice? And she would always say, I know somebody who don't mind. She married that guy, now she got 6 kids, big C. So sometimes it's all fair love and war. Washington Redskins, where's the beef? Washington Redskins, they need to play Dwayne Haskins. You got to let this man take his lumps and have him ready for the next coach up. I know you want to protect him. You want to keep him in that baby's crib. But you got to take him out of the crib so he can learn to walk, and then he can run. Big C, your thoughts?
As a Washington Redskins organization, you have nothing to lose because all you're doing is losing anyway.
Yeah.
But at least if you play Dwayne Haskins now, he'll have some repetitions out there on the field, Charlton. He'll understand the speed of the game. Let him play. Let him take all his lumps right now. You're not making the playoffs.
Right.
All you're doing is playing for a draft pick. You need to trade tackle Trent Williams and get some assets for him, Charlton. But Dwayne Haskins needs to be in the Redskins starting lineup. This shows you how inept that an organization is. The 2 quarterbacks that were drafted ahead of him are playing, getting reps. Kyler Murray is getting better every week in the NFL.
Yeah.
Just beat up on Daniel Jones and the Giants this last weekend, showing people there was a huge separation gap in talent, and the reason why Kyler Murray was taken number 1 and Daniel Jones was not, because of the productivity is there for Kyler Murray, 300-yard games consistently. But you got to give Dwayne Haskins a chance. You sit this asset on the bench for an entire year, not give him any playing time. It's just like not even drafting him, Charlton, because he's going to be a year behind schedule for the next coach that comes in if you don't play in the rest of the season.
It really, we live in a high-tech society where we have artificial intelligence. I have a couple of friends, and they do this dating where they go online and they meet guys that just got out of jail, or they meet guys that have this great profile, and they make it seem like you're meeting the best guy you've ever met in your life. And after some of these women friends of mine, they date some of these guys, and like buying that used car, the check engine light comes on because all their flaws come out when they get you. They stop playing games because they think they got you. And women do the same thing too. Be careful, girls you meet on the date lines. They all got a pass. Some of them just got out of the penitentiary. But it's like these quarterbacks too. And I want to call mainstream media out. You can call us out too if we're wrong. But the same mainstream media, they were saying how Kyler Murray would not be a good choice because he wasn't tall enough. Like Altuve down for the Astros, Big C in baseball. But now when you look at how great he's playing, of course he took his lumps at first. And there were people laughing and saying maybe he should have played baseball. But Daniel Jones, he was the media's darling. They were saying this guy is tall enough, he's big enough, he passes the paperback test. You can Google what that means. And now that they played each other, the guy they said couldn't make it, wasn't big enough, wasn't strong enough, and wasn't the right skin color, is dominating over mainstream's image. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the biggest thing with Daniel Jones, they said, he was coached by David Cutcliffe, who coached the Manning brothers in college. But you got to also realize that was 20 years ago when the Manning brothers were coming up. The NFL was much different then. It's more salient mentally now defensively. They can figure out when a quarterback has, inconsistency.
Exactly.
And that's what Daniel Jones is. When he was at Duke, he never exploited anybody at Duke, Charlton. He was an underneath thrower in his college career. When he came out of college, he was completing less than 50% of his passes that were more than 40 yards down the field.
Yeah.
That's when the NFL defenders are licking their chops, knowing that they don't have to worry about you going over the top. They can just run man coverage on you all the time. And that's what the NFL has been doing, knowing that you're going to throw underneath.
Yeah.
Now, everybody, you watch next week. Well, Kyler Murray is really what we thought he was going to be as a number 1 overall draft pick. They're going to say Daniel Jones has come back down to earth, and they're going to start saying that the talent around him in New York is not that good. You show me where the talent in Arizona is better around Kyler Murray than it is around Daniel Jones in New York. No, it comes down to the ability of the individual at quarterback.
Yeah.
And by far and away, Kyler Murray is a much better athlete, quarterback, skill-wise, knowledge-wise than Daniel Jones will be.
Yeah.
And just as a rookie.
Well, I love the fact, and again, I tell everybody, just Google it. Don't take our words for it. You can Google everything. But I also want to bring up the fact that there was a quarterback, 2 of them last night. One, they're saying, give him his money. Others are saying, well, take a discount. You know how you go to the grocery store sometime, you get things on sale. And one guy, they already gave him $100+ million. I'm going to have a quiz for you and see if you can pass that quiz. I'm not just talking to you, Big C. I'm talking about the sports universe. Pass this quiz. Last night, Dallas Cowboys. When we say, where's the beef? You know they eat a lot of beef down in Texas, Big C. The Cowboys, they beat the Philadelphia Eagles at home last night. It was a 37-10 beatdown. They take command of the NFC East. The great Carson Wentz was 16-26, 191 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Dak Prescott was 21-37, 239 yards, a touchdown, 1 pick, and 1 rushing touchdown. This is a quiz now. I want you to tell me by the performers which one has already signed for the $100+ million. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's amazing how the media keeps saying that Dak Prescott, because Dallas went on a 3-game skid, that all of it was early season hype, Charlton, that they were playing lesser opponents. No, they were playing NFL teams the last I checked. But no one was talking about in those Dallas losses, Charlton, what the defense wasn't able to do. Dak Prescott was still his quarterback that he's always been. But when you had a defense that was giving up big plays, even last week against the New York Jets, where you give up a 90-yard touchdown pass against a very inept New York Jet defense, and they blame Dak Prescott for it. You blame Dak Prescott for penalties, that he wasn't playing defensive line.
Fumbles, drop balls.
As the media has constantly wanted to find a reason not to pay this black quarterback in Dallas and to celebrate this white quarterback in Philadelphia. And I'm not being racist. I'm not being anything. I'm being honest. Because we all see what these quarterbacks look like on the field. And in the head-to-head battles, I think one thing that Dak Prescott has always done with Carson Wentz is outplayed him, Charlie. He showed the ability to move his team. He showed with high mobility last night with his feet. He showed to be able to find the open receivers. And the completion percentage, I think it was just a tad bit higher than what Carson Wentz had. I think the yards was just a tad bit higher than what Carson Wentz had. And they completed the same amount of passes basically in the game, Charlton. But Dak Prescott is able to propel his team to a victory, the top team in the NFC East. And I don't hear anybody in the media crying that Dak Prescott deserves his contract, that he deserves more money than Carson Wentz, because all he does is win. And still, after 3 years in the NFL, Charlton, only Tom Brady has more victories as a quarterback than Carson Wentz. Dak Prescott.
And you can Google that too. Big C, you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week around the world on the #1 podcast network in the universe on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on a program called Xfinity Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon, Fire Stick TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate where things are going with Big C Sports. I want to say tonight's Monday Night Football, and it's a great night, Monday Night Football, having the show to themselves. No basketball, no baseball to compete against. But you think about it, the New England Patriots, they pay a visit to the New York Jets, and the Jets will be facing one of the greatest defenses of all time in the NFL. After 6 games, would you believe the Patriots have only given up 3 touchdowns defensively? They had the others come by special teams and offense. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, as I look at the New England Patriots and what Bill Belichick has done with this team defensively, he's on a record pace with how he has this team performing defensively. Only 3 touchdowns. You think about it. They've given up 3 touchdowns scoring defensively. They have also scored 3 touchdowns defensively. So it's a neutral what the Patriots have done on defense. They actually lead the NFL in all defensive categories. Yards per game, Charlton. Scoring, defense. Completions, all of that stuff. They're the #1 defense across the board. Since the Super Bowl era, Charlton, no defense has led all these categories in one season, and the Patriots are doing that. As much as we rave about Tom Brady being the GOAT and their offense, you think about Bill Belichick. He's lost both of his defensive coordinators over the last 2 years. He lost Brian Flores and he lost Matt Patricia. They are now head coaches in the NFL. And the defense has gotten better since he's taken over. I know Dan Quinn tried the same thing in Atlanta. And they have the worst defense in the NFL. This lets you know the genius of a Bill Belichick is how he finds players that are willing to play for each other and not for themselves.
It's amazing. And just jumping ahead a day, On Tuesday, October 22nd, it will be the 80th anniversary of NFL's first televised game. Philadelphia Eagles 14, Brooklyn Dodgers 33. That was on NBC TV at Ebbetsville. I know there's no game tomorrow, so I wanted to bring that up. But in Big C's Black History, I just want people to Google this. If anyone ever thought about the Birmingham church bombings, and you think about that killed 4 innocent girls in 1963 on this date, you got to look at what has happened to young African Americans. Of course, they were marginalized. They were told you can't come in, that we don't serve colored people, that you can't live in this neighborhood, you can't get a job, whatever it is. But it's been 9 years at that time since the Supreme Court's Brown versus Board of Education. It took the segregation and took it off the blocks, Big C. It made it possible for people to integrate schools. It didn't mean it was easy, but almost every walk of life, African Americans have to fight. They have to start fighting for what was theirs, and they have to use the courts to do it. I just want people to know that's an important day in African American history, and we love bringing that to people's consciousness. Big C, we have NBA basketball that starts tomorrow, and we'll do some talk about that on tomorrow's show. But I know there's a lot of things that I love about what's happening in sports. Northern California bringing a new professional soccer team to the state capital, Sacramento. Also, we have the World Series. They'll be throwing the first pitch down in Texas. And you know, it's always great when people can celebrate around Monday Night Football. But I just hope that everybody stays safe and don't let people drink and drive. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. And he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, you know, there's a game in the Meadowlands tonight between the New York Jets and the New England Patriots. The New York Jets are facing a tough uphill battle.
Yeah.
They're facing the Patriots, who are hoping to stay undefeated as one of only 2 teams with the San Francisco 49ers and themselves undefeated in the NFL this year. The New England Patriots have 17 consecutive wins against quarterbacks in their first or second year in the NFL.
Wow.
Sam Darnold's in his second year.
Yeah, well, and don't get too close to him. You don't want to get the mononucleosis. I hear it's hard to get rid of. But you can also catch every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.